Welcome back, everybody. We are doing another fun episode of Indie Reads Aloud. Wow, we are 3 years into this program now, and I am having so much fun. Those of you who listen regularly know that I am a recovering 6-year-old, just thrilled when people read out loud to me. So I'm grateful that you guys are all coming back for year 3 and helping me to learn about and enjoy indie authors. Today, Rhys Shaw is back. She lives all the way over in California. Hey, Rhys, welcome back.
Hi, thank you.
You're back with book 4 of your series. I
Yes,
am super duper excited to hear this. The first 3 books were so great.
thank
And
you.
it's such a captivating story with really strong characters. So I'm just thrilled whenever I discover new work that really like makes me stay up late at night. It makes me happy. So
Thank
thanks
you.
for coming back.
Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
For those of you who haven't listened to the other 3 episodes that Rhys has read from, let me tell you a little bit about her. Rhys Shaw has always been interested in history, dilapidated ruins, stories of deceit, and survival. Her belief that women are overlooked in history or blamed for mankind's unsavory decisions is the reigning theme behind her gritty, realistic historical fiction books. And I got to tell you, there are no underdogs in these stories. They are very strong characters. In the Welexia series, Rhys draws upon her love of story to bring the pages alive with the personal struggles and pain of strong female characters, taking us on a journey to overcome and thrive. In the modern world, Rhys shares her home with a few furry friends and a less furry spouse, which I'm sure he loves it whenever I read that, I'm sure.
Yeah,
She can be found with her nose in a book or taking a walk through, though not at the same time. And we talked about this before.
we did.
I love walking and reading at the same time, but that's not a simultaneous skill you possess.
It depends on the ground that I'm walking upon.
Okay, fair enough.
The sidewalks here, I'm liable to trip. So,
Okay, fair enough.
yeah.
So give us a little bit of the backstory. We're coming into book 4, A Queen's Wisdom. So before we get into that part of the story, can you give us a little bit of backstory about this series and about how it started and the progression of your main character a little bit?
Yeah, so someone's daughter refers to actually 3 daughters in book 1, but the main character is Ilaria. She was a princess. Her and her family were thrown into captivity in book 1. Her father, the kingdom was overthrown, and a really bad ruler took over. And eventually, the people, starving and in fear of their life because if they said the wrong words or things, they'd be hanged as a traitor, they took the kingdom back in book 1. And she became crowned queen to rule alongside her father, the king.
Mm-hmm.
And as the book goes, I don't want to give all the spoilers away.
No, don't do that.
She's the queen ruling the kingdom. Her sister was kidnapped in book 2. I read a bit about that.
Mm-hmm.
So we follow the journeys of these women. We have a healer named Weleda. We have a really great guy, Bracknor, who was the king's main guy. And when the family was thrown into captivity, he split because he knew he'd be killed so that he could come back. And he's the person who led the group that came back to rescue the
Yeah,
royal
we really
family.
need to remind readers that there are some good guy men in
Yeah,
these stories as well.
absolutely.
They're
Yeah.
not all evil. Some of the men are pretty cool.
Some of the men are great. And I mean, there's even like a couple of not very nice women. So,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not,
There's a really nice balance.
thank you.
Yeah.
So we've had love, we've had loss, we've had heartache, we have, it's great. We have a wedding in book 3, we have a wedding in book 4, so there is love. Um, book 4 is going to pick up Ilaria's ruling Welexia, and they have one kingdom that just always goads them, and that's Restunia. And Restunia is still at it, so much so that they can't allow anyone from Restunia to come there. And uh, they have a prisoner from Restunia because they found out he was living in Welexia and he did a bad thing. So now he's a prisoner and he's in the castle. It's deep in the middle of winter. He is injured because he stabbed someone and they stabbed him back. So he's injured. So Bracknor, our good guy, who's a commander for Ilaria now, is going to question Rankin, the Restunian prisoner, and then Bracknor has to go back and talk to his wife Dandy about a situation that occurred when she was a child that Rankin knows of, and Bracknor, her husband, doesn't even know of the details. I'm not going to share the details in this passage only because they actually come out in book 3. But I'm going to do that bit, and then I'm going to jump to Weleda, the healer, going in to see Rankin. Just a little tiny short segment there.
I gotta say before we start, I love your storytelling style.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's pure wonderful escapism when I'm having a lousy day. Just open your book and it makes me feel so much better because I
Oh,
get to just transport myself into this kingdom, and I really enjoy that.
that is the kindest thing. Thank you. I mean, I want people to escape, be transported. That's exactly what sometimes, we need to read because we want to learn something, and sometimes we just want to escape.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I am ready to hear what you have to read for me, as I'm sure everyone else listening is as well.
Thank
So
you.
we're going to have you read for a little while, and then we'll talk again afterward. When you are
Okay.
ready, please take the microphone and read
Thank,
aloud.
thank you. A Queen's Wisdom. Going to start with chapter 9. There was only one more day to make sure the castle was ready for the wedding. Lanterns and torches were more plentiful in the courtyard as well as lining the hallways. It appeared to be for the ceremony, but was for security reasons as well. Soldiers were outside of all doors in the royal wing and smattered all over the castle and courtyard, with instructions to be extra vigilant and question everyone as to their comings and goings. Dandy was told she would require an escort wherever she went. Bracknor did not go into details, but when he told her they had a Restunian in captivity, she agreed to be careful. He was relieved this was to be a small wedding, with guests made up of family, friends, and those who worked closely for the Queen. As an extra precaution, the castle gates were bolted. Anyone arriving or departing needed to say where they were going and when they planned on returning. Most villagers who traveled to the castle for work had already returned to their homes for the winter solstice celebration and the grand festivities tying it in with the royal wedding. The thick covering of snow and only a few essential workers added to the eerie, quiet blanketing the castle and courtyard. Rankin survived a night of delirium and uncertainty as to whether he would live or die, and was now coherent enough to be questioned. His pallor was chalky and grey, yet he still sneered at the commander when he approached. Bracknell, you are a favored man to be able to look into those green eyes every night. I only wanted to borrow your wife. For the right price, I would have returned her. She may have been a little altered, but I like to think it would be for the better. Bracknell clenched his fists, but they remained at his side. Throwing this reptile across the room was his desire, but he needed information. He cleared his throat to keep the fury out of his voice. Borrow her? What gives you the right to think you can borrow my wife? Rankin tittered. Your wife and I have a connection. It is why I keep coming back for her. There was something familiar about her green eyes. Once I learned she was from Vintnos. I knew I had seen her before. She looks very much like her mother, you know. My mission from King Petrilia did not involve her, but fate placed her in my pathway, so it must be divine intervention, eh? He coughed. Trying to keep up a menacing demeanor was difficult for the man, but he still intended to goad Bracknell as much as he was able to. He could say anything, make up any story or reason for being here, even allude to other Restunians being part of his plan. The foolish commander would believe it. Rankin recognized the look in Bracknor's eyes. He was livid and dangerous, willing to do whatever he needed to do in order to protect his family. It should have caused fear in Rankin, but twisted as he was, it excited him. Bracknor's thoughts were spinning. Was the man delirious? Why was he speaking of Vintnos and Dandy's mother? What did any of that have to do with his being here now, or even when he attempted her abduction a few winters past? In order to win whatever game the Restunian was playing, he needed answers, which he hoped Dandy could provide. Rankin's eyes were closed, so Bracknell kicked at his cot to rouse him. As much as I would love to see you perish right now, I am a merciful man. I will allow you to rest before I question you again. He's even... Oh, sorry, I skipped 2 pages. I will allow you to rest before I question you again. Our conversation is not over. I will return. Dandy was asleep when Bracknell returned, but his questions could not wait. Rankin was alive, but for how much longer? He sat on the bed and watched his wife sleep for a few moments. She had never shared with him the details of when Vintnos was attacked by Restunians, nor of how her mother died. He hated to make her revisit those memories, but knew he must. Gulping down his emotions, he brushed her hair away from her face and kissed her cheek, softly waking her. Stretching, she blinked and opened her eyes before pulling him into a deeper kiss, stopping when she realized something was wrong. What is it? Is Fresney all right? Weleda, what has changed since we last spoke? They are both asleep. No changes. I need to speak with you about something you and I have never spoken about in much detail. I have respected your privacy and not asked for more than you have been willing to share. Questioning the Restunian in captivity changes our unspoken bond about that. I will be as gentle as I can, but you must know, we may not have the time we would like. There is tea waiting for us. I will stoke up the fire. Please join me when you have wrapped up warmly. Dandy watched her husband's back as he walked away, and her stomach churned. Bile rose in her throat, and she forced herself to swallow it back down. She shook as she got up from the bed, fear racing through her body. Seeing the color drained from his wife's face, Bracknell poured some tea and waited for her to take a soothing sip before clearing his throat to speak. Dandy, this will not be a comfortable conversation, and I would not ask these questions if I did not believe them necessary. You do understand this, don't you, my love? With both hands wrapped around her drinking vessel for warmth, and to steady their quivering, she nodded. I understand, Bracknell. I appreciate how difficult this is for you also. She attempted a feeble smile. Please ask what you need to. The captured Restunian is claiming to be the man who attempted your abduction and killed our dear Lexford. He reached out to remove the cup from her grasp, fearing she would shatter it in her hands. Her voice was only just audible. How can this be? Why has he returned? These are the answers I am trying to learn. It seems he has been living in Welexia for quite some time. He's even married a Welexian woman, whom I have sent for. They live in Litchings, a village just over a day away from the castle by horseback. He gave her time to allow the words to sink in, then took both of her hands in his and looked into her frightened green eyes. Dandy, he mentioned Vintnos and your resemblance to your mother. He would only know this if he was there. Dandy's expression of fear changed to one of horror. What are you saying, Bracknell? Did this man kill my mother? I do not know. This is why I need you to tell me everything that happened before I question him again. His wife crumpled before him, and he put his arms around her as she sobbed. After a short while, she stiffened and pulled herself from his embrace, wiping her face clean with her hands. I will tell you everything. First, I'll drink more tea. The cockerels who crowed the castle residents awake had long stopped by the time Dandy had finished her story. Bracknell understood why she had not wished to share it. He rubbed his face with both hands and let out a long exhale. He needed to splash and shave his face, but before he walked away, he dropped to his knees and embraced his wife. I am sorry to have churned up your pain, and I thank you for your bravery. I am now better prepared for my interrogation. Would you like bathing water sent, or do you wish to return to bed? Dandy shook her head and half smiled. If only I could sleep now. Please have the water sent. Fionin will wake soon enough, and I do not want her to see me this way. He nodded in understanding and began to walk away, but her voice stopped him. Bracknell? He turned around. I only ever spoke of this with one other, and he took my secret to his grave when he died protecting me. I should have told you sooner. I feel some relief now that I have done so. Will you promise to share all the Ristunian says? I think I have a right to know. Yes, you have earned that right. I promise you this. Bracknell had managed to somewhat hold himself together in front of Dandy, but as soon as he was out of their chamber, he leaned against the wall for support and allowed his tears to flow. He had not slept all night and had been acting solely as a strategic commander since the events with Fresney and Saria. Now, as a protective father and husband, he added hatred to his emotions. If this man was to be believed, he had brutally killed Dandy's mother. He had also murdered Lexford in his attempt to abduct Dandy. Goddess only knew what outcome would have awaited his wife if Rankin had succeeded in leaving the castle with her. The commander's thoughts wandered to a place where Dandy suffered horrid afflictions and torture. He forced himself to leave that invented memory and vowed never to return to it. He must be composed and in control when he spoke with the prisoner. The man would see through him if not. Taking deep breaths to calm himself, he opened the guarded door where Rankin slept. And Waleda's just going to enter the prisoner's chamber now. It's just a very short bit. Even with the cold snow flurries falling outside, keeping the kingdom in a bitter chill, the small auxiliary chamber was warm. It would have been inviting had it not been for the stench. As tired as he was, it was likely Bracknell had not noticed. With her eyesight failing, Waleda's other senses were heightened, and it reminded her of a rotting carcass in the woods. She nodded to the soldier and motioned for him to sit back down in his chair. He did not need to be told a second time. Waleda pulled a stool near to the cot. The prisoner's eyes were closed, but she knew he was not sleeping. She leaned in so only Rankin could hear her. You are dying. When the young princess stabbed you and removed her sword, she pulled some of your innards out. They were quite a mess. My eyesight is poorly, and I stitched you up on a bumpy wagon in the dark before putting your entrails back inside you. Your foul stench makes me believe some of that internal stitching has become infected. I could open you up again, try to stop the infection from spreading, and then stitch you. This will not happen.
Wow. Okay. Got to go buy the book. I have to see how it ends. So, thank you so much for reading.
Thank
So
you.
fantastic. I love listening to you read. It's like it's so lovely and so wonderful, and you do such great voicing, and I mean it's just you're a natural out loud reader.
Thank you, Diana. I've loved reading out loud since I was a child. I would, in the classroom, the teacher would call on different kids, and I was always excited when it was my turn to read.
I was excited when it was time to do silent reading. So we finished the series.
Mhm.
We've wrapped it up. And I understand that there is a prequel novella that is now available. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. In the prequel novella, I introduced two characters that you meet in book one, but the novella is written in such a way that I don't name them until the last paragraph. So
Nice.
I wanted to make it so people who had not read the book would just find out who they were, but people who had already read the book or the series would have an idea to try to guess who they were, to try to figure out who they were. I think this might be so and so or whatever. And
That's
so,
super fun.
yeah, it was fun. It explains a lot of their behavior in book one, I think. So, you learn people's backstory, you know a lot more about them.
So, how can we find the prequel?
I can give you a link for it if that's something we can do. I've got it. I could say it, but that's weird for people,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah. I'll put it in the show notes.
Okay,
I
I'll
can
I'll
do
give
that.
it to you. Thank you.
So, what comes next for you now that we've wrapped up Welexia?
Um, I
What's coming out next?
I am about 45,000 pages, words into the new book, not pages, words into my new book, and I don't know if it will be a standalone or a series. I didn't know this was going to be a series. It just happened that way.
Sure.
I'm coming out of the 14th century. This one is set in two timelines. 1978 is the most recent, and 1727. And
That's a big time jump.
it is, but There are some historical events that happened in 1727 in Scotland. It was the last woman who was convicted of witchcraft, and she makes an appearance in the book. And 1978, I set that year because there was a Clash concert in Edinburgh on a certain day in that year, and my main characters, one from each century, are in those timelines. And there's a graveyard involved. There's some soul jumping involved.
Oh, so much fun.
So, yeah. So
How
I would,
wonderful.
yeah,
Oh my
yeah,
gosh. I'm looking forward to that one coming out.
yeah. Thank
That's
you.
going to be a lot of fun. And of course, when you finish it, please come back and read a little bit for us.
Absolutely,
That would be
absolutely.
great.
I would love to.
Thank you so much for your kindness. You've been coming back time and again, and I just really appreciate you coming back and indulging me.
I have so much fun. You're just one of the nicest people. I really mean that. That's sincere. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm very grateful
Thank
for
you.
that. Have an awesome day, and we'll see you when you come around to read for us again.
All right. You have a great day as well. Thanks,
Thank
Diana.
you.
Bye.